Hi, I'm your host, Dave Kemp, and this is Future Ear Radio. Each episode, we're breaking down one new thing, one cool new finding that's happening in the world of hearables, the world of voice technology. How are these worlds starting to intersect? How are these worlds starting to collide? What cool things are going to come from this intersection of technology? Without further ado, let's get on with the show. Okay, so we're joined here today by Dave Copithorne of Hearing Tracker. Dave, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, I've been working with Abram Bailey at Hearing Tracker for the last year or so as content director. Previously, I had a blog called Hearing Mojo, which some people in the industry followed. I've had hearing loss for over 15 years, and it was progressive hearing loss that went from very, very mild to profound. And I, several years ago, just got cochlear implants. So I've been through the whole process from very mild hearing loss with CIC hearing aids all the way to implants and pretty much everything in between. So I try to bring all those experiences to writing about the products, technologies, and strategies hearing professionals use to help people with hearing loss. And we try to connect people with hearing loss or come to our site to the resources they need, the products and professionals and other things that are available.
Yeah, that's great. So the reason I wanted to bring Dave on today, as some of you may have seen recently, the Starkey Expo just took place out in Vegas, and over the span of 3 days or so, made a lot of waves on social media. It looked like a really exciting event. Lots of great product announcements, lots of great keynote speakers that they had there. So Dave was in attendance, and I wanted to bring him on to just kind of talk through the whole expo and what stood out in his mind. So Dave, why don't we just start right there? Why don't you start with something or a particular topic that really stood out in your mind coming out of the expo?
Yeah, I think Starkey every 2 years has all of the audiologists, people who sell Starkey hearing aids, come to a big sales rally, basically. And there were 3,400 attendees, and it was a pretty spectacular affair in Las Vegas. I guess and I'd been following Starkey for a long time, but never had direct exposure that way to their team, their executives, and how they run things. And I guess the thing that most impressed me was their commitment to this. They call it healthable technology. Really emphasizing the health benefits of getting hearing loss treated with really good hearing aids. And they wove that message into everything they did. So it wasn't, the first thing Brandon Swalich said was, this isn't about selling hearing aids or making profits. It's about helping people. If you help the people in the way you've learned how, and with the products we make available, the rest will follow. And they were pretty consistent with that message straight through. So that was really good to hear. The other thing was new product. They introduced a custom version of their LivioAI technology. It's called Livio Edge AI, and it's a very small custom hearing aid that gives you all the benefits of the Livio AI technology they introduced 2 years ago, and it's proven to be very popular with them. So it was a good conference, and I guess the big takeaway though was they're really going to zero in on health. In fact, they just brought in and announced chief health officer Arshel Giorgio, who was at United Health before that. She's a real top level person in the industry, and they're focusing on things like hearing aids, helping prevent the onset of dementia and that sort of thing, which are, clearly very important to baby boomer consumers. So that's kind of where they're coming from.
Yeah. So, I mean, just from my perspective or my vantage when I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing all this unfold, I thought that I think that this whole path that Starkey's been taking is really interesting. Really emphasizing this idea that a hearing aid can be serving a secondary purpose, which is all of the health tracking and through the Thrive app, visualizing that data. And I thought that a really interesting development with this is, now that you sort of are capturing that data routinely. And for those that don't know, this Thrive app, what it's basically doing is it's capturing two sets of data. It's capturing all of the different data from the inertial sensors, so the accelerometer and the gyroscope, much in the same way that like a Fitbit would. And then it's also going to be capturing a lot of the actual hearing aid data. So the sound, the acoustic settings that you're walking in and out of, basically how often you're in new challenging acoustic environments. And essentially what it's doing is it's taking these two different sets of data and it's creating sort of like an aggregate score for you each day. And I think that's really interesting in and of itself. But I saw that they kind of took it to another level this year, where now if you're a caregiver, say you're you're the son of or the daughter, you're the grandson, the granddaughter, or just some third party caregiver for your loved one, you can now have access to that information. And for me, that's actually a really interesting development, because now you're starting to get into more or less remote monitoring and making sure, like, you can say, hey, mom, why aren't you wearing your hearing aids? Like, hey, mom, are you getting out of the house? And so you have that insight into the way that they're actually using their data, and you're not just reliant on their answers. You actually have data to back it up now. So I thought that was a really interesting development.
Yeah, it's huge actually, the really cool thing is with the new hearing aids, and future generations of these sensor-based hearing aids,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be able to collect that much more information. So right now it's a lot of stuff. It's fitness, like steps, the time you spend
Mm-hmm.
exercising, and it's social stuff like social engagement that can really sense when someone's actively involved with others versus sitting at home alone. It can sense things like falls, and
Mm-hmm.
very, very important from a caregiver's perspective. And you can opt in or opt out. Allow different caregivers to follow, and it's got very easy. They've actually updated the Thrive app to make it much easier to use. It's much more intuitive. If I'm a caretaker worried about my father or grandparent, few hundred miles away, it's a phenomenal thing, and it really does work from what I could tell. So that's one really interesting piece. The social engagement, by the way, they're tying that right into all the research that's been done on onset of dementia, and loneliness as an epidemic, and
Yep.
all kinds of things. So it all weaves together with the technology.
I think such an interesting thing with wearables in general is, it's a multifaceted thing. So it's one thing from the hardware standpoint to collect the data, but then there's this whole nother step that is making sense of the data and creating actionable insight from that data. And I think that, broadly speaking, wearables in general are graduating into that next evolution. We've already seen about a decade of rather rudimentary wearables, from the like first generation Fitbits all the way to really sophisticated Apple Watches that we're wearing today. And I think that what Starkey's really on the cutting edge of is that second step of creating actionable insights. And so, for example, where I think this ultimately can go is creating proactive notifications for the user. So we're already seeing that they're collecting the type of data that could indicate, a higher propensity toward social isolation and the things that leads to. So this is where I think it gets really interesting, where you have, this. Not only do you have the Thrive app that's affiliated with the user, but you also have these third parties connected, so that you create a network of notifications saying, the user that you're caring for, the person that you're in charge of, hasn't left their home in 3 days, or they've fallen down, these different things. And so I think that we're now actually getting to the point to where we're doing stuff with this data beyond just gamifying it and saying this is how many steps you've walked. We're getting into that. And I think that there's so much potential here. We're already seeing that they have a heart rate sensor in LivioAI. I know that's the Valencell PPG sensor. That's going to be capable of capturing more and more metrics as time goes on. So you can see how, from a health standpoint, it can notify you of threats to your health. From a social standpoint, it can notify you or your loved ones of the data that, the findings within the data. So it really, this idea of a healthable, this idea that these are going to be dual purpose devices or multi-purpose devices serving the role of these sort of like proactive agents on your own behalf, sort of alerting you to the things that it's finding in that data and visualizing it and representing it in easy to digest ways.
Yeah, it's interesting that the AI component and the machine learning component is real. It's coming along. Achin Bhowmik, the CTO, gave
Yep.
a really an excellent presentation on not just where it is today, where artificial intelligence is today, sensor-based machine learning, but where it will be in 2 years, 5 years. And it's just, stunning what the possibilities are. But even today, the real-time AI is really interesting. They've got Livio Edge has what they call edge mode now, and you can do a double tap on your hearing aid, and it goes into a mode where it gives you a boost in a challenging environment, but actually senses what's going on in the environment and adjusts everything to that, so that if it's if you're at a sporting event, it's different than if you're in at a cocktail party, and it's analyzing those scenes and immediately adjusting. And
Yeah.
that was impossible without the sampling that you could have, that you can have now with artificial intelligence machine learning. And so it's all being built into the process. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, of what could be over the next couple of years. It's
Yeah.
going to be exciting. Yeah.
I totally agree, and I wasn't sure if that LivioAI Edge, if that was in reference to edge computing and the idea that you're just basically processing on the device itself. And I know I've seen like Brandon and I think Achin talk about integrated circuits. So I figured that this sort of might be the first foray into that. A lot of people listening might not be familiar with edge computing, but it's basically, think of the cloud as you send something up to the cloud, and then there's a little bit of a period of latency. Edge would actually be on the device itself processing it. So I
Yeah,
didn't know if that was in reference to that.
that's exactly what they're. In fact, that Archim, led with that whole idea of edge computing. And
Gotcha.
when he brought out representatives from Google and Apple, the whole point is that, and they're opening a new R&D center in Silicon Valley, which is another announcement. So that they're really trying to, get the bona fides, the technology bona fides, and play into what's really happening in Silicon Valley at kind of that leading edge of technology. So yeah, that was exactly what they were trying to imply with the edge.
Very
Edge
cool. Very
name.
cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that with the Google partnership and the Apple partnership. And I know prior to recording, we were talking a little bit about that. And it sounded like there wasn't a whole lot of detail, but you made a good point. So why don't you reiterate what you said to me when we were talking about it initially?
Yeah, I think for the audience there, 3,400 audiologists, they're not following everything happening in Silicon Valley every day, but everybody wants to know how is my technology, my hearing aid supplier, dealing with these trends, whether it be Facebook, social media, technology trends, networking trends, the cloud. Seeing big names come in from Silicon Valley and say, we are working with this company on your behalf, and you can't wait until you see some of the great things coming out even
Yeah.
though we're not going to talk about them right now. But
Mhm.
Apple, they have the made for iPhone. Halo, I think, was the second one out that was made for iPhone. That was Starkey's product, and now they're talking to Google about all kinds of things, and obviously with Android and with some of the Google Translate, some of
Mhm.
uh, some of their technologies. There's just all kinds of things you want to do in a partnership. So even just to have them say yes, we're working together,
Right.
and we have a new R&D facility in Silicon Valley, it reassures the people who actually have to sell and fit and sell the hearing aids that I've got a product here that's on the cutting edge. That's the message. And it was a very effective, actually.
Yeah, that and the message that we're not coming to compete against you, that we're looking to support you. We see these offerings, Apple being the king of the consumer in the ear device space with AirPods. I know that there's some fear that, what happens if they just come along and AirPods suddenly have a hearing aid mode or something like that, or in some capacity, Apple gets into the space of trying to compete, trying to create some type of competitive offering to a hearing aid. And personally, I don't think that's realistic. I think that the market isn't not nearly big enough. I think that they tend to only really focus on mass market products. But I think that having them there and the notion that they're partnering together, I think does give a lot of assurance to the providers that look at this as like, this is a really cool, savvy offering, and to have sort of the endorsements and the partnerships from companies as prestigious and well renowned as Apple and Google. I think it just really does. It speaks highly of the way that these devices are perceived, amongst the tech elite, if you will.
Yeah, and it's funny, we're talking about all the time about the high-end hearing aids
Hmm.
and how that market is going to bifurcate. Basically, you'll have, superpower hearing aids at reasonable costs with a lot of capabilities that hearables won't initially be able to replicate. So you'll have an entry level OTC hearing aids, hearables, etc. And you can expect to see Apple continue to put more good stuff into the AirPods,
Yep.
and noise cancellation, other things. But it's going to take a long, long while for a consumer company to replicate the very, very high end stuff
Hmm.
that the big five are delivering. So uh, don't know how big the low end market's going to be. It could be freaking enormous,
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean that the high end market's going to go away. And it's going to be hard for any of the consumer electronics manufacturers soon to replicate those high end
yeah,
uh, capabilities. It's just too tough to get all that technology into such a small package. And
for sure.
that so one thing that Bhowmik came out to talk about with the future. They're working on silicon. They're working on a new chipset,
Yep.
and he said there could be certain features and whatnot. Even this in this coming year, resulting from all that R&D. But with the next generation of products, you're going to see, you know, uh, a huge increase in processing power, which
Hmm.
they're going to put into things like integrating sensors and sensor-based information and
For sure.
everything we were talking about before. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah,
So
no, I totally
yeah,
agree, and I have to say, I think the Achin hire was it was a really well
huge.
executed hire. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air to have, within any of the companies, to have somebody that has the background that he has in the perceptual AI group that he was with. I mean, he is really an incredibly knowledgeable person when it comes to AI in general, and to have somebody like that, I think, really pushing the envelope within the hearing aid industry it's a really cool thing, because I talk about this a lot. Is particularly when I'm not in and around the audiology industry, is that the hearing aid really is, in a lot of ways, the most sophisticated wearable out there.
Right.
And therefore it fetches usually the largest price. But in so many different ways, it really does represent, I think, the future of wearable computing. And I think it's cool that you now have some really innovative leaders in these companies that are moving the ball forward. So I just thought that was a great hire. So as we wrap up here, what about the speakers? There was an incredible set of speakers, from Colin Powell to Gary Vaynerchuk to Matthew McConaughey to, there was like 10 different people. Tell me a little bit about some of the people
Yeah,
that really stood out to you.
I think that's one of Starkey's strengths, is getting together,
For
putting on
sure.
a good show like that. Oh my goodness. Day one was really about, products, technology. Day two was about how you deliver, marketing, the digital patient. Day three was about the purpose.
Okay.
So day three was great with Colin Powell and Matthew McConaughey, and, people who've done a lot for the world. And Tim Shriver, who's the chairman of the Special Olympics, was incredibly moving, because his whole pitch was, we've eliminated, every time we have a Special Olympics event, you reduce or eliminate the loneliness, the isolation that these kids, these people experience. And that's exactly what the hearing professionals do.
Totally.
And in fact, he said they do now medical screenings for attendees, for participants. 3 out of 10 who go through medical screening have hearing loss issues that have not been looked at. So it's again tying hearing into this overall health. So that was great. And then the other speakers were terrific too. It's just, ending up with kept everybody there through the, Bon Jovi was the
He was the closer.
the headliner for the last night of the party. So Brandon Sawalich is a terrific impresario when it comes to putting on an event like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a lot of fun. But I think at a time when the professionals in the audience are coming with so much anxiety about OTC hearing aids and about competition and about the changes in their practice and having to adopt new technologies like remote care and all these things that just weren't part of the playbook if you went to school 10 years ago. There's a lot of anxiety out there, and an event like this turns that anxiety into positive energy. And
Totally.
so it was a lot of fun. You kind of leave that saying, okay, I kind of see where this could all go. And you get excited for everything that's coming at the low end. It doesn't blunt my enthusiasm for the hearables, the wearables, the sensor-based stuff, but learning how that's going to come down into the consumer space by seeing what the research being done for $6,000 products is pretty exciting. So I think the hearing aid companies are going to continue to lead the way on that innovation, and then those will spill down to more consumer products over time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I actually, I had Anna Pugh on the episode that I released today, and we had a long conversation about just sort of like the evolution of the audiology industry and the hearing care profession. And I think one of the takeaways that I've had consistently now between her, with Jeff Cooling, with a number of people that I've talked to, is that these new offerings in and of themselves are becoming more complex. There's more options and saturation in the market. In essence, everything is becoming more complex. There's just a new layer of complexity. And I think that the byproduct of that is that when the market becomes more complex, there's a higher demand for expertise and knowledgeable assistance. And I think that in a way, all of this technology and in OTC and really everything that's happening right now can really actually stand to benefit the provider, because it furthers their differentiating asset, which is their education and their expertise. And I think that for those that stay abreast with all that is happening here, and they understand that a device like LivioAI, it might not necessarily be a one size fits all. I'm going to fit every single person that comes in here. But if I have a patient that these type of healthable, features, they would resonate with them, or I have, somebody that would be a really good fit for, like Phonak, with the sword chip and having that connect directly to the Roger system, that's a really good patient. But I think like having just a really solid understanding of all of this new technology, what everything already does, already having your traditional education and expertise, but kind of augmenting that with all of this new stuff, I can tell you for sure the online hearing aids that are going to be out there, the big box hearing aids, the ones that you can buy at Walgreens, all those different things, they're not going to be going and jumping through hoops to help really navigate you through this and match you to the right solution for you. And I think that that's really going to be where you can succeed, is by being extremely well versed in everything that exists today and being able to just like on a one-on-one basis match people to what's best for them.
Yeah, and that's that a final comment on that is exactly what I was thinking, that like with the Thrive Care app, you're not going to go to Best Buy and have them say, here's how you can get a remote caregiver into the system and follow.
Exactly.
That's a whole systemic health related thing that's huge, that all of a sudden audiologists can jump right in, and they've got exactly the relevant experience to make a huge difference in these patients' lives. So all of a sudden it becomes, I'm visiting the doctor because we have some medical issues that we're going to take care of. That's something that everybody can get on board with and use their applied expertise. It's really
For
exciting.
sure. For sure. Well, thank you, Dave, very much for joining us today, breaking down the Starkey Expo. Thank you for everybody who tuned in this week, and we will chat with you next time. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Future Ear Radio. For more content like this, just head over to futureear.co, where you can read all the articles that I've been writing these past few years on the worlds of voice technology and hearables and how the two are beginning to intersect. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll chat with you next time.